The story's protagonist is Manu, a homeless man who works odd jobs for cash. He is extremely impoverished to the extent that he doesn't even think twice before engaging in dubious activities. He has resided on a beach since he was evicted from his house due to late rent payments. One day, as he enjoys the sun's warmth, a former client, Lamouche, approaches him. And he presented a proposal for him. Manu is required to collect a suitcase from a taw and transport it to another individual. Throughout the entire process, he is prohibited from peering into the suitcase. Because the mission is confidential, he must use a car to transport the suitcase. Manu's desperate need for money drives him to accept the job without questioning its legality, even though it is unlawful. However, there is a small issue. He does not have a car. He courteously inquires if he can personally deliver the suitcase, but Lamouche vehemently declines, stating that a vehicle is necessary. After the client leaves, Manu begins searching for a vehicle. Due to his insufficient funds to buy it, he resorts to thieving to acquire one. He finally discovers a vintage model and takes it for a spin to his closest pal, Jean Gob. Manu desires to have company on the mission, thus he invites Jean Gob to accompany him. He suggests an equal division of the money as the latter is also in dire need of financial assistance. He immediately gives his consent. Later, while the duo is en route to their intended location, peculiar sounds emanate from the trunk. They disregard it as the engine, yet the noise continues to amplify with each passing moment. After a short time, the vehicle suddenly comes to a stop in the middle of the street, but the noise continues. After confirming that the engine is not the issue, they proceed to unlock the trunk with anxiety, only to find a massive fly stored inside. This surprises both of them, as the fly seems to have come from a different planet. After swiftly closing the trunk, they proceed to discuss and consider their next step. Manu wants to get rid of the fly so that there is room for the suitcase they are about to pick up. However, he encounters difficulty when attempting to open the trunk as it becomes stuck. This makes him anxious, as Lamouche has advised him to store the suitcase in the trunk. During Manu's struggle to find a solution, a sudden idea strikes Jean Gob's mind. He suggests taming the insect and instructing it on pilfering money and food from others. This will be valued significantly higher than the €500 they are about to receive from their target. Manu is fond of the idea, so he promptly joins in. They shift their attention to the fly and abandon their current mission at 2 p.m. Initially, they will require accommodation since the insect cannot be seen in public. After some time of exploring, they come across an old trailer. They choose the middle of nowhere as the ideal location to train the fly. The sole issue is that an elderly man is residing within it. But Manu has a solution to every problem. He initiates a conversation with the man before swiftly incapacitating him from behind. After that, the two friends proceed to restrain him by fastening him to a barrel and taking charge of the trailer. While exploring the area, they stumble upon provisions, equipment, and even a gun. Manu has never utilized one before, but he keeps it for safety. The duo subsequently utilizes the equipment to ultimately unlock the car's trunk. Afterward, they decide to bring the fly indoors and secure it with duct tape to prevent its escape. Just at that moment, the old man discloses that he has concealed €3,000 nearby and he would willingly hand it over to them if they release him without any restraints. Manu readily agrees to accompany him to the place without hesitation. Meanwhile, Jean Gob chooses to remain in the trailer and attend to the fly. Manu halts the car during the journey and commences searching the surroundings for the gun. This provides the old man with sufficient time to unlock the door and flee. Manu is left with a bitter realization. But unfortunately, it's already too late for him to take any action. He comes back to his house and sorrowfully informs his friend that he failed to acquire the funds. Jean Gob purchased cat food using the remaining money they had. He emphasizes that their only hope for survival depends on initially feeding the fly. By evening, the fly consumes all the food, yet it remains famished. The two friends are also famished as they haven't had any food for 24 hours. The following morning, they devised a daring strategy. With the gun, they intimidate a stranger and coerce him into purchasing groceries on their behalf. When they arrive back at their house, Manu promptly begins cooking while Jean Gob commences training the fly. In a gesture of fondness towards his ex-girlfriend, he lovingly refers to it as Dominique. The fly seems to possess a fast learning ability, yet it will require a few days before comprehending commands. While deeply engaged in conversation with his friend, Manu fails to remember that the gas stove is still turned on. As a result, the kitchen ignites, leading to the entire trailer being engulfed in flames. Manu narrowly escapes with a pot of broth. Now, the two friends find themselves without a home once again, but they do have a clear goal in their minds. They spend the evening sipping from the broth and simultaneously feeding it to the fly. That night, Manu is uncomfortable because of Dominique's strange noises while they try to sleep in the car. Thus, he exits and rests under the stars. The next morning he suggests selling the car and replacing it with a more comfortable one that provides a better sleeping experience. However, as they attempt to drive off in the vehicle, it fails to start. Manu then devises an alternative solution. He employs a pony bicycle to tow the car to the dealership. On their journey, they encounter a bunch of young individuals. Cecile, one of the girls, believes that Manu is her schoolmate Fred. Despite his attempts to clarify that he is not the person, she is too excited to see him after a long time and disregards his explanation. She subsequently invites the duo to join her at her countryside retreat, where they will embark on a well-deserved getaway. This is great news for Manu and Jean as they can finally have suitable accommodation. After arriving at the residence, they park the car a certain distance away and ensure that Dominique is safely secured inside it. They subsequently relax by the poolside and enjoy refreshing beverages. Currently, Cecile's brother Serge is holding back his anger over her decision to invite unfamiliar people to their home. When the sun sets, Cecile leads them to their rooms, telling them they can stay here for as long as they desire. Manu is excited, while John Gob is worried about his pet fly. After that, Cecile takes out her school's yearbook and reveals to Manu the photo of that Fred guy. He was surprised to see that they bore a striking resemblance to each other, almost like twins. The focus moves to the dinner table, where we meet Cecile's sister Agnes. She has a weird condition that makes her speak loudly. It's like she never stops shouting. Later, Cecile reveals that Agnes had suffered a head injury during her childhood, which has resulted in her never speaking in a gentle tone. After dinner, Jean Gob discreetly retrieves Dominique from his car and brings it back to his room. And he starts to engage in playing and practicing with it. However, when Manu enters his room, he discovers that Agnes is already present. He attempts to start a conversation, but she misunderstands it as flirting and asks him to leave. Manu then tries to enter his friend's room, but Jean Gob declines, as he needs to focus on training the fly. Consequently, Manu had no choice but to spend the entire night next to the pool. The following day, Agnes approaches Jean Gob outside his room, filled with suspicion that he may be concealing someone inside. She claims to have caught him talking all night. Due to Jean Gob's inability to reveal the presence of the massive fly, he resorts to creating a false story by stating that it is his cherished pet dog. Agnes gets even angrier because dogs are not allowed inside the house. She assures that she will notify her sister and remove him from the house. Jean Gob nervously calls for Manu after she goes away and tells him all about the problem. He urges him to find a dog promptly or else they will encounter difficulties. Manu is furious about the unexpected mix-up, but he reluctantly agrees to lend a hand due to his good fortune. He discovers a lost puppy just outside the house. Afterward, he cunningly brings it indoors and discreetly passes it to his friend at a separate location. Agnes informs everyone that there is a dog at home. They try to ignore her because she is known for making up stories, but when she continues to push, they reluctantly agree to look into the room. The group investigates to determine what is occurring. To their surprise, they discover Manu cradling the small puppy. He comes up with a sad tale, claiming that he took in the dog because it had nowhere else to go. He then says sorry for not letting them know about it. Cecile is completely infatuated with his selflessness, so she permits the dog to remain. However, Agnes and Serge have started to get suspicious. The noises last night didn't sound like a puppy. They sounded like a giant fly. After everyone departs, Jean Gob demonstrates a trick to Manu that he has taught the fly. It now follows what he says and can even respond to his gestures. The duo is thrilled by this and believes that Dominique will soon be able to sneak food for them. Afterward, the two of them dive into the pool and begin frolicking like children. Agnes looks bothered by all the noise coming from the pool area. Back inside the room, Dominique is left alone with the tiny puppy. The pair gaze at each other before the fly suddenly attacks the dog. Manu and Jean Gob are still making a lot of noise at the pool. Agnes gets really annoyed by this, so she starts swearing at them and goes back into the house. She attempts to enter Jean Gob's room, thinking that he might be keeping a secret. Despite the door being locked, she skillfully unlocks it with her trusty hairpin. Agnes walks into the room and is surprised to see a gigantic fly there. Filled with fear, she emits the most piercing scream she has ever produced, instantly capturing the attention of everyone to rush into the room. Agnes is unable to utter a single word due to the overwhelming shock when questioned about what transpired. Meanwhile, Jean Gob discovers the dog's leash and realizes that Dominique has devoured it. The rest of them believe it was Agnes who ate it, so they decide to report her to the police. Jean Gob finally locates Dominique by the pool and discreetly stashes it in the car. In the following scene, the police officers declare Agnes as crazy and decide to take her to the hospital. Before she is escorted away, she talks to her sister. For the first time in years, she unexpectedly speaks in a regular voice. Agnes detailed all the things she witnessed in that room, but Cecile is not convinced by her. Afterward, while conversing with Cecile, one of the officers realizes that she is his former classmate. He is none other than Fred, the guy who resembles Manu. He shows off a tattoo on his leg that he got during his school days to prove it. Cecile is left in shock, as she comes to the sudden realization that the two guys are fakes. The police officers then went ahead and arrested them for fraud, but just before that, Manu and Jean Gob were able to make a quick getaway in their car. Since they have no place to go and no funds to nourish the fly, they choose to carry on with their previous mission. Even though they were 3 days late, they made their way to their target location and acquire the briefcase they then have to the second target, who turns out to be a wealthy businessman. The dudes give him the briefcase and receive 500 euros in return. At this moment they discover that the briefcase contained nothing but some ornaments. After that, the scene cuts to a couple of days later and the two of them have once again settled down to live on the beach. Jean Gob looks happy now that he finished his training with the fly. He seizes a newspaper and directs Dominique's attention to a picture of bananas. He has hope that the fly will bring them the fruit. But as soon as he releases the creature, it simply takes off and flies away. Jean Gob is still holding on to hope for its return, while Manu is certain that it won't come back. After going back to the beginning, they become emotional and begin discussing the importance of friendship. Manu says that they don't require the fly since they have each other to depend on, which is the greatest gift one can receive. Jean Gob nods in agreement, but he is still feeling upset about his pet left him. Then they both get into the car. As they are about to leave, Dominique suddenly appears with a bunch of bananas. Here the story ends. Thanks for watching.